Hi, I'm Nick from Fouch-o-matic Off-Grid. We're doing a new feature on our channel where I get to walk you through a project I'm actually doing. So you get to see all the little parts, how I do certain things, and maybe it'll give you ideas on how to do your project, or maybe things that you should never ever try. You'll see a little bit of everything in it. So this week, our first one, we're going to show you how I built our custom door jambs for our off-grid home. Enjoy.
Great.
One particular thing about doors, you may notice when you go and pick up a door, the hinge side is oftentimes cut at a little bit of a funny angle. They put a 7-degree bevel on the hinge side, and that is so that the leaves of the hinge don't have to smash totally flat to each other. It just helps with the hinges not binding. So your hinge actually closes to about there when the door is all the way closed. So that is particular to which way the door swings. So if I want this door to sit like this, and I want the hinges to be on this side, I want the long side of that 7-degree bevel to be on the hinge side. Right now, it's on the wrong side. So I guess that probably means I'm hanging this door backwards. But that doesn't really bother me too much. In this particular case, there's not really a difference between the inside and outside surface of the door. So what I need to do is I need to go and cut this door. I need to rip the edge of this door at a 7-degree bevel going the other way. And what that'll do is that'll get rid of the old mortises from the old hinges, because I'll be cutting it back right along the corner there, and give me a fresh start on mortising the hinges. So I tend to work on the floor a lot, just because it's a faster setup than sort of arranging your space around one little operation. So I know a lot of folks would probably say, get some sawhorses, stay off your knees, make it all exactly right, but I'm able to move faster and be happier with my progress if I'm able to not move a lot and just kind of stay put and do the work right where I'm at. So here's what I'm doing. I'm going to rip down the edge of this door at that 7-degree bevel, so I'm looking at what wants to be the new long side, which is the inside. I have this is kind of a tall order for a battery saw, but this saw is pretty good, so it'll do it. I have the saw set at my 7 degrees right there. So I have this saw guide made. This is a 10-foot long saw guide that I made out of particle board. It's worked really well for truing up edges of all sorts of things. How that works is the edge of the saw is right there, and then the edge of the guide is right where the blade goes. So that's how I'd use it normally. However, I'm setting a bevel on my saw, so if I used it that way, it would put a bevel into the guide, and I don't want to sacrifice my guide for this one operation. So I am just going to use the edge of this guide. I'm using it because it's a long, straight object. It could be any long, straight object the way I'm using it. From the tooth of the blade to the edge of the saw is about 4 7/8. I'm going to go ahead and cut off just a little bit of the edge of the door so that I get a fresh edge there. So right to the edge, I'm going to go about 15/16. Got my guide clamped down. Gets kind of loud, I'll wear these. So the reason why I made that adjustment first, why I made that cut, is so that we determine the final width of the door before we lock in, the size of the door jamb that we're building. So it ended up right at 35 and a half. Pretty much dead on, 35 and a half. It is 79 and a half tall. So those are numbers that we want. So we write down 35 and a half wide, 79 and a half high. So in my experience, it works well to add 3/16 of an inch to your width, from the width of your door to the inside width of your door jamb. 3/16. I've tried an 1/8 per side, and it works out pretty well, but it's just a little more air than I'd like on either side. So it ends up being 3/32 per side, 3/16 overall. So I know that from 35 and a half, adding 3/16, it's 35 and 11/16 wide. That's the inside dimension of my door jamb. Top to bottom, you want about an 1/8 at the top. Basically the same offset on the three sides, and then about 3/8 at the bottom is what I've done, and that gives you enough room to put on a good sized sweep at the bottom of the door, so it closes nicely against your threshold. So we go ahead and add a 1/2 inch to the height, so 80 inches high for the inside dimension of the door jamb. I know that I'm using 3/4 inch material for all 4 sides. 3 sides of this is going to be made out of fir that we milled ourselves. You can use whatever you want, to match what you're doing. Fir is a good choice for us because it matches all of our timber frame, and we're going to trim out all of the windows in it as well. So 3 sides in fir, and then the sill the threshold, I'm actually going to make out of some oak that I have. So a lot of my choices here are inspired by what do I have in the pile. So I know that the thickness of my wall is going to end up with a true I have actual 6-inch framing, 1/2 inch of sheathing on the outside, 1/2 inch of drywall on the inside. It's going to end up at 7 inches thick. So I want the jamb to come out and essentially be flush with the outside and be flush with the drywall on the inside. That'll give me the opportunity to trim it and cap the end of the door jamb on the inside. And then on the outside, the trim, the brick mold, which is it's a fatter piece of trim, will come and cap the jamb on the outside as well. So you more or less want to stay flush with the thickness of your wall. However, mine is irregular enough, and I bet that most are irregular enough, that you go ahead and you add a little bit. So I'm adding a 1/4 inch to that to deal with any irregularities when I go and actually plumb that door jamb. I still want it to stay proud, even if my wall isn't perfectly plumb. So I'm saying that my door jamb is going to be 7 1/4 deep. So I have these 3 pieces of fir that I milled down to 3/4 of an inch. I rough cut them at 8 inches, but our door jamb wants to be 7 1/4. So more table saw work to get this all ripped down to 7 1/4. As you can see, I have some things I want to try and get rid of as I do that. I have this older table saw. It works fine. It turns the blade splendidly, but all the other parts are a little frustrating to work with. I just use my tape measure against the fence here and set it manually. When you're doing that, you want to look for the tooth that's angling this way as opposed to that way, because that's what's going to be contacting the wood first. These are at 8 right now. I'm just going to pick the edge that I like best, and I'm going to take a 1/4 inch off of it. We're going to reset the fence to our final dimension, 7 1/4. These boards were just rough cut. I don't know that these ends are square at all. It's not, so I just do a cut to start out so that I know that I'm starting with a square cut. And we can get rid of that ugly spot. Alright, so we're going to assemble all 4 pieces. We cut the 3 pieces of fur for the jamb. We're going to put it together with this threshold. This is a custom piece that we make in another video. So it is a little detailed, it is time consuming, and it warranted its own video. So go check it out. So I want to go ahead and orient myself so that I know what's what. This door is opening in, so I know that this is the outside of the building. There's a drip edge that we ripped into the threshold, that goes on the outside. The particular lumber that I'm using, I milled myself from less than choice lumber. So I'm looking at both faces, what has the more open knots and ugly stuff. I think I'd rather hide that face, so I'm going to call that the inside. That's inside of the jamb, that's outside of the building. Inside of the jamb, outside of the building, inside of the jamb, outside of the building. So I'm putting this together with glue and finish nails. I do that because it's fast. I don't like stopping and clamping and getting real specific about it. I will go back and I'll put a couple screws into each joint, but with this I'm able to hold it where I want it, hit the trigger, and it stays there. A little dab of glue. Spread it out a little bit, and I do want to be careful not to try and not spread glue. This is going to be the inside of the door jamb, and I'm just oiling this as a finish, and if I spread glue past that corner, then it'll show up. It's really hard to get that out if you're just doing an oil finish or a stain. So I am engaging all appendages here. I got my left hand holding it flush. I got my feet holding it upright. I know that it's flush on top. I know that it's flush right there. I'm going to fire away from my finger first. By what I mean by that is, if I have my hand there and I'm holding it flush, I don't want to be firing right there, because that's well within range of that nail. So I put a nail down there. I was out of the way. Flush that up, hold the hand away. So we're going to dry fit this one time just to make sure we get in there. The notches on that are cut well enough to get into. Yep. So no problems there. So with this nailer, these are 2-inch nails, maybe a little bit overkill. So when I'm lining that up, If anything, if I'm not going straight in, I want to angle just a little bit away from the visible edge. If something does want to go wild, it's better to be on an edge that or a face that you're not really going to look at. And I'm going to back it up with some screws. This just sucks it a little bit tighter, gets a little more of a positive connection. You certainly don't need to use a fancy trim head screw like this. But this is just another case of using something that I had left over from another project. Should we do a test fit? That's pretty good. We still need to mortise our hinges into the door and into the jamb. Mortising in just means you want the face of the hinge just barely proud of your surfaces. So pretty much set all the way in with just a little bit showing. I do that with a trim router and a straight bit, and I really just draw it and freehand it. There are, of course, templates and other better setup ways to do it. I just like to draw it and follow the line. This is the long point of our 7 degrees where we re-beveled the door. So that's the long side. That's going to be the knuckle side of the hinge. It's going to look something like that. You can see how if that closes flat, it doesn't quite have to smash all the way down and have the leaves of the hinge touch. I am putting the hinges right back where they went, although I'm flipping them around. So they had it laid out at 6.5 from the top to the, and these are measurements to the top of the hinge, 36 and 65. And because I'm flipping them around the other way, the whole pattern is not going to line up. So this is the top. This is the top of the hinge, because there's a hole in the bottom. That's for forcing the pin out of there, which I'll do in just a minute. But because this pattern mirrors each other, you can't just flip the hinge around and have it be right. So when you're laying this out, you have to remember which way is up and know that you're putting the pin up. So I have my tops marked. I'm going to mark the depth that those hinges are going to sit at. And I'm going with 1 3/8 from the surface of the door. Then I'll take a hinge and line it up to my depth mark, my height mark right there. And I just trace it. Nice dark line. So I think I have my router set up right, with the depth set just right, but I usually run a test. Doesn't have to be pretty, it's just clearing a little area so you can feel how that's going. And that's good, it's just barely proud of the surface. So I just hold it with my legs. So that's pretty good. That way. So now I'm going to go ahead and screw on half of the hinge. Again, there are really awesome templates and even drilling jigs to, you know, a jig that helps you get your screw hole right in the center of the hole there. But I am trying to show that you can do it without. That you don't need a huge investment in tools and stuff to be able to do it. So I'm drilling a hole that's just a little bit smaller than the shaft of the screw, meaning the in between the threads. This is a hardwood door. This is mahogany, I believe, so it really does need a pre-drill. Some of the some screws have a little cutter on them and are ready to go in, you know, into softer woods anyway, without a pre-drill. But I find that the pre-drill really helps. It's an easy way to locate it in a careful way. So whether the wood really needs that relief or not, I tend to do it just because it's easier to put a drill bit where it belongs than it is to put a screw where it belongs. So what I do is I just put in 2 screws for the time being. That's so that if I do have to make an adjustment of some kind, I can, I'm not locked into one position. So if I felt like I needed to move the hinge a little bit this way, I could do that, drill a new hole in the hole that I haven't used yet, and get that to actually keep it where it belongs. And then these holes would be a little bit compromised, but at least I'd have those other 2 that are fresh. Now we carefully lay out the hinge locations in the jamb. Make sure we have it oriented correctly. So this stands straight up, it goes over there. This is my hinge side. So that's where the thickness of the door lives, is right in that little pocket. So I'm going to measure it just like I did on the door. I'm going to go over here to remind myself of the numbers. 6.5. All right, 6.5. Now in this case, that's 6.5 from the top, but I need to add 1/8 of an inch to all of these numbers because I'm going to have an 1/8 inch gap at the top of the door. So 6.5 becomes 6 5/8, and that marks the top of my hinge. 36 1/8. 65 1/8. We're going to use the same setback as we did on the door, because when this door hangs, we want the door to be flush with the front of the jamb. So I haven't moved this tool at all. I'll just pick it up, do what I need to with that. So we're doing this exactly like we did on the door. Right up to that line, into the top of hinge line. Trace it, and it's a lot easier to see on this nice blonde wood. Same thing, I'm just following the line. Same depth. All right, I'm gonna put the sander on this face just really quick, just to take some burrs away and the pencil marks, because it'll be a lot easier than after it's up. So this jamb is pretty much ready to go in. I'm not going to put the other half of the hinges in these mortises right now because I'm actually going to hide a screw behind the hinge that goes into the rough framing of the wall. So next up is to install the jamb into the opening. So there you have it. That's how I built our custom door jambs for our house. A little note on safety. You may see that I don't always wear all the right safety equipment. My table saw certainly isn't outfitted with all the right guards and outfeed table and everything. So please exercise caution when you're doing your own projects. Do not model your safety plan off of what I do. I just thought it'd be interesting to show you how I do it. That's how I did it. So next week we'll show you that custom threshold that you saw go into the jamb and how I did all the milling operations on that. See you then.